Hey everybody, Mark Burgess here, Big East Bass Fishing, bringing you another video on a cold, rainy, raw Sunday. Alright, so I'm in my office here and rummaging around, squaring stuff away, just working on, content ideas and things like that. And I found an old notebook of mine. Real old, as a matter of fact. And there's just one entry in this notebook. And I'm going to read it to you. Okay, so a little backstory on it. These were notes that I took back in 1998. Okay, this would have been my fourth professional tournament, third of this particular season. And what I did was I took down notes on a pre-practice trip and the actual practice and tournament itself. So I thought it'd be cool just to kind of read these notes all these years later, and I have not seen this in a long time. So what it was, I was fishing my first full season on the Bassmaster Invitationals. Okay, I'd fished one tournament. I've talked about this before in the fall on Lake Hartwell, and that following year signed up for all four of the would have been the Eastern Invitationals or the Southern Invitationals. Can't remember exactly what they called it, but they were invitationals, not opens, where it was pro-on-pro format. So I've been traveling initially with, Eddie Cowan, Frank Geiner, Chris Mann. We went down to Hartwell together, and then Chris Mann and I kind of linked up and were traveling partners and practice partners, staying together for that first year on the invitationals. Okay, so we went down in January to pre-practice. Drove down here. Chris at the time lived in Connecticut. I still live where I'm living now in Norton, and we drove down to Santee. Okay, so we made the trip down there and spent 3 days on the lake down there. And let me just read you some notes. Put on my spectacles. So first entry is dated 1/19/1998, 10:30 a.m. Rain, cold, 40 degrees, windy, 20 to 25, water temp, 50 to 51. Fished Rocks Pond area, lots of trees, which there would have been cypress trees, no fish. This was Chris and I fishing out of my boat. Okay, and we ended up bumping into a guy, great guy, still keep in touch with him to this day, Inky Davis. Well, we went to eat at the Somerton Diner. And I'm going to tell you, if you want to take a trip back in time, you go to the Somerton Diner in Somerton, South Carolina. Just a phenomenal experience. The food is just outstanding. Southern cooking at its absolute best. Southern hospitality like you read about, okay? So we met Inky. He kind of recognized us as bass fishermen, and I'd like to do a little story on him in the future. Just a phenomenal career he had fishing and guiding on Santee Cooper. Okay, so we bumped into him there and just developed a great friendship. So second day, 1/20/1998. Fished Tawcaw Creek. Backwater under the road. Only grass left in lake. Okay, now this is, if you go to the back of Tawcaw Creek, there's a culvert. Big enough for a bass boat to get in, barely. But we went through that culvert, and back in there was rumored to be the only grass left in the lake. Now this is following when they thought it would be a great idea to spray and kill all the grass, and at the same time let a large population of grass carp go in the lake, because the lake was just loaded with hydrilla. Okay, temporarily ruined the lake, just destroyed it, really. It was just the famed fishery, that hydrilla had a lot to do with it, okay? So it took a few years for the fish to acclimate, and it has still become and is just a world-class bass fishery, my favorite lake ever. Dangerous to run around, but it's phenomenal bass lake. And the fish have relocated to, obviously, cypress trees, brush piles, drop-offs, things like that. And it's just a phenomenal fishery to this day. So that's just a little bit from my memory there. So back in this backwater, was still hydrilla. So shallow with wood, some trees, caught one nice one, 2.5 pound plus on a floating rattle trap, blue chrome. 2 to 3 feet of water temp, 52 degrees. So 2 days, one fish. Later on, that same day, 1/20/98, this would be the third entry into the notebook, fished Waibu Creek, looked at riprap and dock, warmest water, 53 plus, no weed, no fish. 1/21/1998, excuse me, ran down a lower lake, down through the diversion canal. Long ride, 45 minutes. Fished Russellville Flats area. Caught one 4+ nice fish on a spinnerbait on a lone stick-up. No stumps, no nothing, 2.5 feet of water, 51 degrees, question mark. Okay, so don't know what that fish was doing, but that's right about the time when, they'll get on a stick. So, and this 4 pound plus fish was on just a stick. This was out in front of the diversion canal. Old diversion canal, sorry. All right, so that was the pre-practice trip, and to add a little bit more content to it, those are the only 2 fish that Chris and I caught. So he was kind of bumming out. We were fishing in that Rocks Pond area. He was flipping like a black-blue jig, and he had one heck of a bite, and it was a big fish, and so he was psyched. Only to get the fish up, and it was a huge grunnel, just a huge mudfish, and he was bummed out about that. But we neither one of us had ever been there. We met Inky. We learned the lay of the land, where some ramps were, where the tournament was going out of. The host hotel, places to eat, gas stations, stuff like that. So we were somewhat acclimated with the area, which became part of my MO that I still do to this day, to learn as much as I can about the area, so when I'm actually there in the tournament, I can just focus on finding and catching fish. So the next entry is in February. First day of practice. First day of practice, no fish in quotation marks. Spent all day fishing the back of Takaw in the grass. No fish. Second day, no fish. Spent all day in Waibu Creek fishing docks. No fish. Third day, again, quotation marks, no fish. I remember the weather just being absolutely horrendous. Just howling wind, cold, rainy, brutal conditions. And if you've never been to Santee Cooper, the main lake, basically, I mean, you have to stay in what, shipping lanes or travel lanes, boating lanes, poorly marked because of the standing timber. And when you get, I mean, they were like 6-foot waves. I'm not exaggerating. And you had to stay in that boating lane, regardless of which way the wind was blowing and which way the waves were. And you had to take them that way. There was you couldn't maneuver to make it better on yourself or the boat. You just had to basically just take it. That's what we were dealing with. A lot of guys didn't even go out. Okay, no fish. Spent day in south end of Upper Lake fishing drops and trees. Okay, again, no fish. So went down for pre-practice, 3 days, 2 fish. 2 different areas, night and day, 2 different baits, 3 days of official practice right ahead of the tournament, no fish. First day of the tournament, drew Rick Morris. We went way up the river, fished trees, water temp was 51 to 54. We both flipped jigs, flipped trees. I had 2 fish for 4 pounds 9 ounces, so 4.5 pounds. I'll say, that was a memory I have of fishing with Rick. Can't remember what boat it was, but he said he had some kind of off-brand trolling motor. I can't remember what it was. It wasn't a Motor Guide. It wasn't a Minn Kota. It wasn't the, I can't remember what other brands there were at that point, but it was extremely unreliable. And he had his spare trolling motor, which a lot of us did carry a spare trolling motor back in that time period, was literally in the floor of the boat where you sit in the pit, in the bottom of the boat, because of how much trouble he was having with the trolling motor. So he took me up up Santee River into an area, and over by a railroad trestle, and kind of right-hand side of the lake, up in that upper area. Not a lot of people up there, very few boats. And like I said, I had 2 fish for 4.5 pounds. So he didn't get a bite. So it wasn't like we were lighting the world on fire, but it was, those were important fish, as you'll come to see here, for the tournament. So next day, so that was an invitational. Okay, so boater on boater. So next day, draw boater. He didn't have any. I can't remember his name. He didn't have any fish. I had 4.5 pounds. So basically, unwritten rule gives me kind of like the boat and the free will to do what I want to do all day, because he didn't have anything going on. He hadn't caught any fish in practice. He didn't catch fish first day of the tournament, so he rode with me. So I went up the river, fished completely different, like miles apart, really, but basically looking at the map, which was paper map in those days, pre-GPS, all just by landmark. And I'm telling you, it was sketchy as hell, running up just to get to the river where there was a organized channel to be able to run. Okay, so definitely puckering the whole way. Get up in there and using a paper map, just kind of, again, just using my instincts, fishing an area where I thought fish would be possibly staging, prior to spawn, because this is February, in South Carolina. Okay, so it wouldn't have taken much warm weather. Like I said, the water temp was mid-50s at that point, so several weeks out from spawn, most likely. So day 2 of the tournament, I did the same thing, but I ended up finding, kind of a deal where there was matted grass around these trees, cypress trees, and, again, fishing in an area that I'd never seen in my life. I had 1 fish for 2.5 pounds. Okay, so that gives me about 7 pounds, okay, for the tournament so far. So day 3, these are my notes for day 3. Day 3 of the tournament, and again, back then on the invitationals, the full field fished all 3 days. So at that point, I'm 3 pounds out of the money. I ended up fishing main tree points on the river channel edge with a jig, black blue jig. I had 4 fish for 12 pounds 2 ounces. I ended up finishing 31st, which would have been my very first professional check in my 4th professional tournament. It was $1,700 for 31st place. I ended up moving up to 14th place overall in the points. 11 places out of the Classic. So pretty cool to find this many years later. And again, I ended up skipping a page. It's the only entry in this entire book. So I thought that'd be kind of a cool story to tell you about. Just, a lot of memories doing that. Kind of fell in love with that lake at that point, and so yeah, not a bad start. So hope you enjoy it. I'm going to try to, obviously come up with some more stories from the road and things like that. But I thought it was pretty interesting. I thought I'd share it with you. So again, channel's really growing. I appreciate you watching the videos, taking time out to watch your videos, and subscribing to the channel. It's encouraging me to continue to work hard at it and try to post something every day for you. Okay, so everybody have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll definitely talk to you soon.